We in class didn't talk about sleeping with the dictionary, but why don't we just say that Harryette Mullen is exploring what might be called an erotics of a poet's relationship to the alphabet, which is the tool that she has given to do her meaning making. Just that concept itself is exciting and weird and challenging and innovative. Do you want to say anything about that, as just, even if you don't have the poem in front of you and are just thinking about the concept of an erotics of the alphabet? Sleeping with the dictionary?
I mean, it's a little bit bizarre to think about it in a physical sense, but as poets and writers, don't we all like sleep with the dictionary?
Yes, say more. That's great, Jane. Say more, please. And Jason, you're next on this. Sleeping with the dictionary, really?
I mean, that's, I guess, not how I think about it. I think more like playing with the dictionary, but I guess it just shows how intimate this poet believes her interaction with her poetry is.
Yeah.
Which is inspiring to a reader in that sense, because it's like my interaction should be intimate in a similar way. So.
Oh, that's so well put. And what I'm going to do in a second is just play 15 seconds or 20 seconds of Harryette Mullen reading Sleeping with the Dictionary, that piece. It's a rare recording because she doesn't really record a lot. And then I'm going to invite various people, starting with Jason, just to say something about that poem, almost to cheerlead and ballyhoo, you know, others buying the whole book and reading all the pieces. Yeah, what I was going to say, I forgot. So I'm going to play a little bit of the poem here. Chris, we ready?
Is Sleeping with the Dictionary. I wondered if you could say a little bit about that piece and read it for us as well.
Okay. You want me to read it first?
Okay.
All right. Sleeping with the Dictionary. I beg to dicker with my silver-tongued companion, whose lips are ready to read my shining gloss. A versatile partner, conversant and well-versed in the verbal art, the dictionary is not averse to the solitary habits of the curiously wide-awake reader. In the dark night's insomnia, the book is a stimulating sedative, awakening my tired imagination to the hypnagogic trance of language. Retiring to the canopy of the bedroom, turning on the bedside light, taking the big dictionary to bed, clutching the unabridged bulk, heavy with the weight of all the meanings between these covers.
Okay, I'm fading it out, but wow. So Erica, you're going to be next because you said this is the poem this week that, you know, you're most interested in. Jason, say something about Sleeping with the Dictionary. And if anybody here in the next few minutes can comment in a way that connects it to other poems this week, that would be really great, because we haven't done that yet. Okay, all Jason.
Right. Let's see. I think that having read and taught this book,
it's a very teachable book, isn't it?
Yeah, it's teachable because it in part teaches itself, so the teacher doesn't have that much work to do. But it is a way of really playing in language and letting language. So some of the poems are kind of almost formal experiments where various bit collections or gatherings or magnetized random samplings of language get all pressed together and placed together in different relations. So in a way, it's kind of like some of the poems are like the dictionary's own dreamings of its own kind of subconscious possibilities of what's below. It's because the dictionary is the most beautiful poem of all, we could think. I mean, I urge everyone to go sit and find a dictionary. And like, we don't have dictionaries anymore because I just looked up the word hypnagogic on Google.
And that's not like going through a dictionary because you
It's
don't
not.
get to have the n+7 accidental relationship of the
Right.
arbitrary alphabetical order. It's a little like Dewey Decimal. There's
Right.
nothing quite browsing the library for accidental relationships that were invented by the
Right.
arbitrary Dewey Decimal, whoever Dewey was.
Yeah, and I think that there's just about this particular book, so it's just a really joyful, jubilant book that is extraordinarily fun to read. And
Yeah,
although
cool.
the poems, you are a unit beyond my mileage, you are a Yugoslavia beyond my mind's eye, you are a Yoo-hoo behind my minor key. Although those might not make sense, they are. Harryette Mullen manages to create these arrangements that are like listening to Rice Krispies or something. Like it's they enable like one's own mind to play, and they're such like a gift.
Yeah.
They're such a gift to readers to I'm trying to think of like what the right exercise is. I don't know. It'd be like being in one of those giant like transparent inflatable balls and like rolling through the world and seeing the world through that perspective.
I knew you were going to come up with that. Not. Thank you, Jason. That's a really great introduction to it. Erica, can you say something, especially if you can connect Harryette Mullen's project to some of the other work that we see this week? If you can do that, that would be cool. If you can't, that's fine.
Yeah, I think I can. I'm thinking a lot about the connections between Harryette Mullen and Charles Bernstein or Bob Perelman on the level of thinking a lot about the weight that a single word has in a line. So in Sleeping with the Dictionary, the title is playful, but it's also, she fell asleep with the dictionary. And at the same time, Mullen is really interested in the Oulipo and in different ways that you can manipulate language and create this beautiful thing out of it. And I think that like in some of Charles Bernstein's poems, you see a similar deep care for form, like in a restless world like this is.
Yeah.
I feel the same really intense attention to the word as a unit. Am I allowed to make a plug?
Yes, please.
So I would also, in connection to some of the conversations and the discussion forums around the difficulty of finding a way into language poetry, Belladonna published a book called Looking Up Harryette Mullen, and it's a combination of interviews and letters between Harryette Mullen and Barbara Henning.
Yes.
And the interview section of the book goes poem by poem through the entire book, Sleeping with the Dictionary.
That's great.
And is absolutely wonderful and is really helpful, I think, in terms of just like imagining what one does encountering poetry like this for the first time.
Yeah, that's great. And you were too modest in the plug because you are obviously crucial to the project, the Belladonna project. Oh, you've got it right there. Zach, can we go back to Erica? There it is. Really cool. And there she is. Mm-hmm. Lily, you are a big fan of Susan Howe's take on Emily Dickinson.
Yes, I am.
And I think a lot about Lynn Haginian coming of age in my life, having, for a girl, I think for the girlhood that is in the first sections of that book, it's inappropriate to talk about a specific erotics of language. But clearly she comes of age as a woman being languaged. And then, of course, there's Howe's not eroticizing Dickinson in the biographical way, but eroticizing Dickinson as, for instance, My Life Had Stood a Loaded Gun, which is a very erotic poem. So I'm going to read you a line from Harryette Mullen, and maybe you can go anywhere with that. So aroused by myriad possibilities, I can almost stop there because it's so Dickinsonian. Aroused by myriad possibilities, we try out the most perverse positions, she in the dictionary. We try out the most perverse positions in the practice of our nightly act, the penetration of the denotative body of the work. Any exit from the logic of language might be an entry into in a symptomatic dictionary.
Well, so something that I really picked up from what Jason said earlier was the word play. And I think that the concept of play, but not like not in the sense of like the work is silly or not important. Play is more experimental, but with an air of play, like also with like a child's version of play, where play isn't necessarily just carefree. It can be working things out in play. Yeah. So like that's the context that makes sense with Lynn Heginian. Right. But so getting to play with
language, getting to play with words.
But also getting to play with gender and sexuality. Like you hear a lot of, in that first section of My Life, you hear a lot of like very specifically gendered words and things that are actually kind of sexualizing to say to little girls. Like pretty is as pretty does is a very violent phrase to say to a girl in a way, but we don't think of it so much. So I kind of think like in that excerpt you read from Sleeping with the Dictionary, that's kind of, that's an adult's voice speaking about the same thing that maybe Heginian's trying to recreate, not in a child's voice, but through the language a child heard. Then in with Susan Howe, like I think of it less as erotics, I guess, and more as exploration of gender and sexuality. I'm less interested in the erotics of language part, but I understand that that's a...
Yeah, I meant to use it in a broader sense. Her reading of My Life Had Stood a Loaded Gun, which is about the power dynamic of a relationship. If the power dynamic is open, it's going to advantage the unspecified I, the speaker, in that marvelous poem.
And also that if you're writing from a less specified position, you're not limited by the gender expression that you're like assigned by your body. You're like able to explore other ideas and
that's right.
And not just explore in a just try it on for fun kind of way, like inhabit, like with strength is kind of the argument that Susan Howe brings to a reading of Emily Dickinson. It's like, it's not just healing a wound of exclusion or something. It's like very strongly inhabiting an identity.
That's really good. And and the students in the room will particularly appreciate maybe appreciate my framing of it this way. But Susan Howe, Lynn Heginian, Harryette Mullen, those three in particular, but Ray Armantrout, we haven't been looking at those poems this week. They're all going to say, in effect, and Howe's reading of Dickinson's life is particularly strong in this point, that these people do not want what might be called a pre-professional relationship with language, right? Language is not simply going to serve to get you to some place of acquisitiveness and status. That language has to be used in a resistant way, and the resistant way is, as you described it, play, it's out of order, it's Oulipian, it's sleeping with the dictionary, like taking it all and perverse positions with language.
But there's also that we try perverse positions. It's like, this not a prescriptive, I forget what word you just said, not prescriptive, like more experiment and play.
Yeah.